Greetings to you all. We would like for you to see the beautiful pyramid that is full of rainbow colors and light. At the top of it is a sort of spiraling point. This is an important understanding for you. This is an image that sort of mm, represents something like what you are doing. This is the top of the pyramid, if you will, that you are managing and sort of dialing to speak into us. We ask that you notice this because it is such a successful process. It is really working for you, and we are impressed that you are able to do this. We were not totally certain about how to do this with you until this moment. It is like before you were sort of bumping around, but now your process is becoming really ideal, a sort of apex of understanding. We wish you to know that this is a marvelous thing that you are doing, and we wish you to know that you are all marvelously welcome here to speak to us. Please do not feel that because Dave is speaking today that you are not welcome to speak on your own as well. He and we would love it if you do this, but of course, do this in your own time. There's no pressure to do this. It's just that Dave has a little bit more practice, if you will, for doing this. So don't let this be at all exclusive. We are here to answer any questions. Feel free to do so.
Whom are we speaking?
Arka is speaking. Keep in mind, I am just sort of a representative here, and we form ourselves in the name of Arka, but it is more energy that we are. It's not a form of a body as you have in your world. You might even think of us as a sort of theme, like the theme of a book. That's who we are.
Can you tell us your point of
Ooh, this
origination?
is a great question. Our point of origin is the same point of origin as you, my friend. We all go back to something called the light. This would be difficult to explain in your terms, but we will give it a try. Imagine there is light, and then at some point that light decides that it would become many lights. Of course, as it divides, the lights evolve and become different things. So one light is sent to Earth and has an earthly experience. One light is sent out into space. One light is sent to other planets, etc. There are many, many, many lights. Just as there is variety on your planet, there is variety out here. But it all comes to one source, which is light. This is an abstraction we understand, and it is maybe difficult for humans to perceive this, but as you've spoken of today, it is maybe wise just to feel this and not give it a perfect form, because any perfect form, any human created form would be somewhat inaccurate, as is the word God. That is a word that humans have given for something that they are attempting to represent and understand in English or other languages.
Were you ever in a three-dimensional form?
Yes and no. You are our three-dimensional forms because you come from us. So it is sort of like you are our brothers and sisters. You are genetically related to us, if you can use such a metaphor. And in this metaphor, you have come to Earth to become humans, or animals, or minerals, or rocks, etc. We could go on. But the formation of your question really is sort of opens itself to many answers, many interpretations. Would you like to ask for maybe more specific details?
Yes, I was wondering if you were processing evolution in the same way that we are here on this planet. Did you
Mhm.
did you perhaps start out in a similar fashion?
Ah, you mean did we evolve?
Yes, from a
Yes,
physical form.
from a physical form. Well, we would not say a physical form. All of you are evolving, and in your case, you are evolving while in a physical form. But you will evolve when you are not in a physical form either. Can it is sort of like a great ball of light where bits and pieces of it sort of move in different directions to learn different things. You all come back to the light. But in that sense, yes, we are evolving too. We are all evolving. So we are from the light, but understand we are not all of the light, just as you are from the light and you are not all of the light. We are all portions. We are learning in a different way than you are, but we are still learning. For example, today, when we see you coming together in this marvelous way, developing this terrific method, which is so useful, that is not something we would have been able to do without you. That is, when you are doing this, you are actively choosing to do it. You are choosing to evolve. You're evolving a method. We are there to watch and perhaps to advise, but we cannot give advice without being asked. The question also seems to be, did we ever send a part of our light to Earth? Is that part of your question and a form?
No, I was curious whether you evolved on a different planet.
Ah, yes. Well, how could we answer this? Some portions of us were formerly embodied either as humans or other beings. We went to, for example, some of us have been to Earth and lived in different times and have experienced humans in their human form. This was useful for us so that we could come back to the light and know better how to guide you again when you asked questions. So, absolutely, there are members here who can remember the lives of Christ and Buddha who were close to those figures. There were members here who evolved from shamanic cultures, Native Americans, and all these sorts of things. We were witnesses to many human evolutions and sort of partners in those human evolutions. We did not necessarily know at the time that we came from this great light. We were just like other humans involved in things that are happening and had our tears and our happy days, etc. We did not necessarily know what we know now, but we were learning something new. It's a way of speaking. It is almost like con- consciously choosing to forget the light so that we can go to the earth and evolve in a similar way to humans. We can understand their sadnesses, their happinesses. We can experience joy and anger, etc. So that when we go back to the light, we have those experiences to help us in our understanding and awareness and evolution of the universe. It is perhaps a way to describe it as a Big Bang is not a bad example. When does the universe decide it would like to learn? Well, it just decides. It is hard to explain, but it just decides it would like to learn so much. It would like to experience different things. It would like to know more. And as it does, it embodies in different ways, perhaps as an archangel, perhaps as an impoverished human on your planet. Both of those are learning. They are just learning in a different way.
Yeah.
You are
May I
welcome,
ask a question?
of course.
Before our connection with you today, we were discussing pain, the pain that we experience, or many people experience on Earth. You, for
What?
example,
Hmm.
I mean, we experience pain on many levels. Some of us experience physical pain throughout our lives. Other people experience emotional pain, and for some, the pain that they're experiencing is almost unbearable.
Yes.
For you, in your realm, you don't have a physical body, so can you even comprehend physical pain, or is that something that is totally unique to this plane?
We comprehend physical pain because some of us, again, have been embodied. That is, we have been on earth and suffered in certain lifetimes, etc. So we have experienced pain not just on Earth, but on other planets. But where we are now, we would not express our pain as physical at present. And again, we use the term at present, although time is somewhat of an illusion. But
Mm.
our experience of pain is a little bit more like empathy. It is like we see, it is like a mother sees her child and sees that the child is in pain or suffering, and we wish to help. Sometimes we must be wise and leave that suffering. This is a difficult thing for us to do because we do have empathy for you. There is an urge sometimes to rush to the earth and to solve the problems. We will send a messenger, or we will transform the weather. There is always a sort of desire to give the crying child a cookie, if you will. But as with a good parent, there are sometimes experiences where you must allow the child to experience what it must experience for its own learning. That is, we watch you, but it is not without sympathy. And we would like to let you know right now that you have our greatest sympathy when you are suffering and pain. It is not an illusion per se, what you are suffering. It is very real. We are often moved, but our experience has been that it is better to allow humans to evolve on their own. We have tried to sometimes alter events in the past. Your origins are very much about our sending messengers, if you will, to Earth, but sometimes these messengers messages were convoluted. They became weapons against themselves. We will give an example of Egypt. At some point, we sent a messenger to Egypt. This was a pharaoh in your terms, and the pharaoh was there to change and better humanity. This pharaoh had a name Akhenaten, and when we sent him to you, we were hoping that he would be able to alter the way that the society was functioning, to make it a little bit more just and kind, to make it a little bit more aware of the true nature of the universe. But it was merely embodied in one person. The idea that this man was trying to embody and send to others died upon his death. So he was a messenger, but we questioned the utility of sending such a body. And of course, this character wound up feeling a failure when he passed out of that life because nothing much remained. We, of course, would suggest to that character that thousands of years later, people would discover him and see some value in the messages that he was bringing. So it is difficult to answer and say that we feel no pain. That is not the same pain that you feel. It is more empathy.
Mm-hmm.
We would not say a heart sickness because that is too strong, but an empathy.
Could you help us? We're still on the subject of pain.
Yes.
We draw a distinction between physical pain and emotional pain.
Yes.
I understand emotional pain to be an energetic pain, but I don't know whether that's true. I'm not sure whether it's chemical. Could you explain to us what emotional pain is?
It is not one or the other. It is all of the things that you named. So, because you are in a human body, if you cut your finger, you will feel pain. This is for your safety, of course. If you did not have that feeling, you would be cutting yourself all day and your body would not survive. So, your body does have these mechanisms, if you will, to protect itself. And those mechanisms do involve pain because that is a human experience. Without pain, you would not feel ecstasy and joy. So there is a physical layer of this. It is possible for humans to some degree, overcome physical pain. That is, humans who are recovering from an illness, who are placed in a hospital near a church per se, where they can hear the singing of the joyous monks, they will heal more quickly than those who are put in an unpleasant hospital that is not clean and feels dark to them. So the physical pain can be managed, and over many lifetimes, you can learn to better manage physical pain. You may see often people in physical pain on earth, and of course, you will have empathy, as we do, and we must have empathy for those people. But at the same time, they are learning how to manage the physical pain. It is a very intense quest that they have gone on. So we don't wish to say that all people should suffer pain and that you should just manage it, etc. We don't want to be cold. We would just suggest that that is a choice, that it is an event that they wish to work on that perhaps they don't remember when they're embodied on Earth. The psychological pain is somewhat similar. When something heartbreaking happens, of course, you will have empathy because this is a human experience. It must be that you have empathy for others. It must be that you sometimes feel sad. This is a range of emotions that it is useful for you to feel. That is, it is a human experience that we are deprived of. It might surprise you to know that some members of this body would actually like to go to the earth and feel some pain just to understand what it's like. It is like tasting a foreign food, if you will. You might get to Earth and taste such a food. It's droll because Dave has had the experience of tasting Vegemite, something that he finds absolutely horrific and disgusting. But it is part of his understanding of the Australian culture that they would choose Vegemite over peanut butter. So we might come to Earth and experience pain in a lifetime and have a little bit of remorse while we're experiencing it. But of course, when we go back to the light, we bring the experience with us and say, yes, it is all worthwhile. It is a good question because one thing you may be asking is, when I am feeling pain, should I adjust myself? Should I feel that pain? Should I go to the sadness that it is? Or should I rearrange it and manage it so that I feel only good thoughts? We would suggest to you the answer is no. You are not here on earth to only feel one kind of feeling, to be constantly uplifted, if you will. It is not a plane where it is only light. That is just so much what you remember. It is a memory of those things, and there is an urge to go back to the light sometimes as you exist on the human plane, because there are horrible things that you experience. There are terrible tragedies and sadnesses that happen, and it would be unnatural if you didn't feel those pain. We would ask you, Carl, that when you see another suffering, and you have empathy for that person, that comes from your own suffering. You have felt the same as that person, or in a similar fashion. So the pain that you have suffered is actually useful in some way because it brings you to the awareness and understanding of the pain of others. You might think of some elite people in your society who have never felt hunger. Such people have no sympathy for others because they don't understand what it is like to be hungry. They don't understand the psychological effects of hunger as well as the physical effects of hunger. They think it is simply a choice, that you could just get a job and you work your way through this, because they have never experienced that hunger. You, for example, have experienced pain, and that has made you into a sympathetic person. So when you see pain in another, you will want to comfort them, to listen to them. It is what makes you a human in a good sense. And human is never a bad sense, but in the best sense. That empathy that you are experiencing is the best of your world. It is the same empathy, in a sense, that we feel when we see a human suffering. So, yes, there is pain, and yes, there are these emotions. Keep in mind, it is not necessary to dwell on those emotions. That is, The fact that you may have experienced pain at a young age doesn't mean that 20 years later, when a similar event occurs, you need to experience that pain again and again. It might be that the pain has to be understood and taken apart. So last week when you were all available to Dave, and again, he wishes to thank you for this, you experienced exactly what you are talking about. In a way, it was a sort of prototype for what we were talking about. You were able to give Dave empathy. You were able to give empathy to the person who passed. Dave had to spend a little time unpacking the meaning of this and reincorporating it into his worldview and acceptance that the universe truly is good. This is the greatest problem with pain. You must understand how to incorporate it into a greater good. This is a challenge. It is perhaps the greatest challenge for humanity to understand. Yes, you do experience pain and unhappiness, and it is normal. It is okay. It is not to be dismissed. It is to be felt, to be understood. It is also to be understood that one need not indefinitely rest in the place of pain. One can understand it, move into another emotion, and in that process, there is more learning. Does this answer your question, Carl?
I guess it does, and what I take from this is outside of the human, outside of 3D reality, source energy, spirit, with the exception of feeling empathy for what happens here, you don't have emotions or we established no physical pain because you have no physicality. So yeah, it just gives us the understanding of this is a domain of pain. and
Yes.
and outside of this, so when we pass over, for example, we don't take that pain with us, or do we? If we've experienced pain, extreme pain and extreme trauma, do we carry that energy?
It is more like you do carry this energy, but it does not have the same effect on the other side. You carry this as a memory, and when you go back to the light, trust us, there is divine sympathy and empathy. Believe me, believe us, when you go to this place, when you experience the pain, we do to some degree experience it with you. Again, as a mother, we wish to comfort you, but sometimes we must resist. Sometimes we do not. Sometimes we come to comfort you. That is, imagine a person has lost their spouse and they are in tears, they are distraught, they see no happiness. We will bring love to that person in a way that they can access. That is, perhaps even in a dream, we might bring the spouse who has died to them and let them know that it is all okay, let them know that their love was true and beautiful and that it was worthwhile to experience that on earth. This is a sort of empathy, and trust us, it is huge and strong. It is sort of all our emotions bottled into one experience. But we don't have the emotions, for example, of hatred. That does not exist for us per se. There is concern, perhaps, or a desire for divine intervention, if you will. But we are made up of souls who have experienced that pain, and we've had them sort of incorporate what they experienced into our awareness and understanding so that we can understand and help you better. But it is not the gamut of emotions that you experience. Keep in mind, while we do not experience pain, we also don't experience love in the same way. So, just to be comic here, we don't experience sex You do, and there is a great ecstasy in that, which we can only allude to the people who we incorporate into our selves, if you will, the human beings that have become part of us, will come and reveal to us the marvels that are ecstasy, that are religious experience, that are love or connection, that are the moment when the human connects with everything in the universe and feels an indescribable joy. All of those are things that we cannot experience exactly as you do. That is, we maybe experience them, but not with the same intensity. It might be a way to understand it that your body is a sort of vehicle. This vehicle is a portion of light, is a limited body. It is not all, but it is limited. So when it experiences something, it has a much greater effect than it would if it was more spread out. Does this make sense? You have a body, and in that body, changes are felt in an extreme. Whereas if you did not have a body, if you were a sort of collective of 1,000 souls and experiences, that feeling would be more diversified. It would be wiser. It is interesting to note that sometimes we will reincarnate on earth and we will have a memory of the pain that we experienced, and sometimes this will overcome our lives. So, for example, Carl, there may be a past lifetime that is affecting the present lifetime because before you came to earth, you chose, I wish to work out that pain of that last lifetime, and the message is, I have a problem with my big toe. It is driving me crazy. It hurts. I don't know why it hurts. I go to the doctor. I try to solve the problem, etc. What your soul is really doing is working out a pain that you didn't really complete in the last lifetime in a way that is a bit safer to your human experience. That is, perhaps you died in some tragic accident and you experienced that. Now you will experience this as a pain in your toe, and you will learn. You will focus on that pain, you will work around it, you will change your diet, you will meditate, you will go see certain doctors, and then perhaps you will do some spiritual work around it and realize that this pain is real and can be experienced and then can be dismissed. It is like checking the box in the Akashic records of the life.
Thank you.
You are welcome. And do not hesitate, anyone, to give us very specific examples for your life. We find that if you give specific examples from your life or from the lives of others, and that it is easier for us to explain and easier for people to understand.
May I ask, when we have these kinds of experiences, who is actually the one who's writing it in the Akashic records? How does it get there? I mean, there's lots of information there, but I mean, who's the one? I mean, is it us when we
Yes.
back up there?
Yes, but it is being written as you speak. So right now there is a book of you, and in that book of you, you sort of have a librarian there, a writer, if you will, who writes the story of your life as it happens. So we might think of it this way. It is sometimes said that everybody has a book in them, and it is true. All of you are a moving forward book. The conclusion has not yet been decided, although there are some experiences that you are anticipating happen, but your reaction to those experiences are not yet formed. They will come about, and those will be written literally as they happen. That is, the words that are being spoken right now are being written in the record. Your works too, your understanding of what is being spoken, your energy now at this moment is being written. Understand, of course, this library is a bit of a metaphor. It's not literally ink and paper. There are not necessarily literal monks running around to the library checking books out. There's not literally a library at the door who checks your card. It is not exactly this, but it is just the best metaphor that we can come up with. All of your stories are being written. None of you are ever experiencing something irrelevant. It is all important. Every single moment is written.
Oh, thank
So
you.
is this kind of like a computer where you're just inputting information, sort of like data entry?
The only problem we have with the computer metaphor is that it is a bit metallic. That is, it is sort of like a machine, and the machine has no soul. The library is much more of a soulful place. It is perhaps composed, let us use another metaphor, of readers, people who check books out. Perhaps they will check out the book of another person's life and they will look at it with fascination and interest and they will be moved. The computer is a cold device. It is like a piece of plastic, let us put it that way, and we don't wish to put plastic down. But for example, we will not use other metals or something because that would seem as if they are unalive. But the plastic is a human creation. It is a sort of fabrication, and it has a very specific energy and form, which is colder, if you will. But it is something like this, something like a computer. However, we would rather you consider this and think of it in the way as you are living your life, there is a kindly, empathetic scribe who writes down the story of Sue, who says, today Sue went to the grocery and did a kindness for another person. She was much uplifted after she did this kindness, although it was very simple. Then she went home and meditated and again achieved a certain state of awareness and understanding. Then she had a glass of water. This is all written. It is more interesting, of course, to write that Sue had an experience of enlightenment, an experience of understanding and compassion for another. The fact that she drank a glass of water, of course, is not so interesting or significant. It is a sort of period to the sentence, if you will. We are more interested in the things that you feel during the day than the things that you do, per se. We are more interested in the things that happen and how you react, because when you go to read your Akashic record, that is what you will be interested in. You don't care that Sue had a glass of water, although the glass of water might be essential to what comes next. Perhaps Sue needed to drink more water and she was fulfilling her role in drinking more water. That is more the case, but the really interesting part, the well-written parts, if you will, the parts that make you engage with the novel, are about Sue's kind action and Sue's elevation afterwards and Sue's choice to meditate that morning. Is this clear?
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
You
Wait,
are
so
welcome.
sorry. So on the reverse of that, if someone was, and I know this is extreme, but if someone was to kill another person or commit just very heinous acts, causing pain and inflicting torture on others, this is written down in their Akashic record, correct?
It is indeed.
So if that's the case, then does how are they held accountable that way? I mean, does karma carry over from one lifetime to another then?
This is the ultimate question, isn't it? Right now, you are living in a time where people are doing poor things. They are acting against the interests of other humans. And you, as a human, what should you do? Should you condemn them? Should you punish them? Well, the answer, of course, is to some degree, yes. But to some degree, understand, how did this man or woman become a murderer? What happened to them as a child or along the way? Were they born with a sort of inability to feel empathy for others? If that is the case, it is the truth that they came to experience that lifetime. So it is difficult to accept, but perhaps in your incarnations on earth, you were not a nice person, you did unkind things to others. We do not suggest at all that this is true, but let's suppose that you were a mediocre human and you were not particularly kind to your neighbors. Let us just choose something somewhat subtle to that. Yes, that is a memory that you have, and when you cross to the other side, there is a bit of regret. All of these people, when they see what they have done and they understand the unkindnesses that they have committed, for example, if this was a lifetime of yours and you were not kind to a neighbor when you should have been, that is something that you would reflect upon. And you would say, you know, I did have human choice. This is extremely difficult because it involves a contradiction. You are held accountable, yes, but at the same time, you are completely understood. This is a complicated contradiction, and in there lies something slightly beyond your human understanding. That is, you can glimpse the value of this contradiction at certain points, but it is only a glimpse because it is not in your human experience to understand that contradiction perfectly. So if anyone have done some poor actions, and most people have, they might go to the end of their life and review it. When you do this, you will be much harsher on yourselves than we would ever be. We have the understanding. We see why the child became a murderer. We see the horrible things that occurred to them and how it warped their experience and how they became that. This is difficult to accept, but that soul has chosen that life. That soul has chosen those experiences. That soul has not decided in advance how it would change. We will take the example of Hitler. Hitler was treated horribly as a child. He was beaten almost to death, sometimes by his father, the person who should have most protected him. There is a question, were these experiences determined beforehand? And the answer is largely, but not totally, yes. Again, this is not necessarily logically explicable, but Hitler could have experienced these things and become a great artist. He could have experienced these things and it could have developed into empathy for another. He could have developed in many different ways. There was a choosing. There was a time when he decided to choose hate over empathy, and he is responsible for this choice. So it is understandable that you would condemn such a person, that you would look at that choice and say that choice was wrong. But it is in your best interest to also look at the situation around that person and see that the situation around him was so difficult that it was very hard for him to make the choice to become an artist. It was easier for him to make the choice to become full of hatred. This doesn't justify his actions, but it is useful for you to understand that in such a situation, you also might have chosen the hateful path. It is likely, even in this lifetime, a moment has transpired where you chose a hateful path. We know that all of you are a bit more evolved than the average human, and at some point you looked at that action and said, this is wrong. I should not hate such a person. I should do my best to understand them. Please understand that you must hold people accountable for their decisions. That is part of your role in this life, that you hold people accountable. But it is difficult to hold people accountable and at the same time not judge them. That is, you would judge their actions, but you would not judge that person. You don't know whether you, being in that same situation, would have done any different. It is likely that you would not have done the same thing, that you, in your evolutionary position now, would choose love over hate. But another soul has not evolved as you have. They have not had the cushion of enough lifetimes for them to know that there is love as well as evil in this universe. You have had enough lifetimes and enough experiences to choose. It is sort of like you are a graduate student and you are looking at a kindergartner. As you look at the kindergartner and you wish to help them, you would do your best to change that environment. You would try to take the child that is being beaten away from the parents that are doing this. You would do your best to change the circumstances, and you should do that because you are an agent of power. But it might be that in some cases you cannot change that. You cannot change the environment that that child has experienced. You simply cannot change it. And therefore, as the graduate student, you must look at that situation and have empathy for that child. Be available if they are able to change. But it might be that the only person who can change that experience is the one who is experiencing it. We understand this is extremely difficult to take. Because you have empathy for others, it is extremely difficult to allow the cruelty to be okay, because it is not okay. This is a contradiction, but within that contradiction lies a greater truth. We would say to you, we don't judge you for judging others. We empathize with you for judging others. But as much as possible, take the actions away from the human. If you were to meet a 5-year-old, if you were the teacher and the 5-year-old was misbehaving, they were behaving in an extraordinarily bad way, what would you do? Would you hit them or send them home? Would you call the parents and yell at the parents? Well, that wouldn't be very effective. What would be more effective is to talk to the child and see what is happening. Why are you acting this way? It is difficult to do this. You may not get your answer. The child might not be able to explain how they are feeling, but they might have an indication that somebody cares about them. And that indication that someone cares about them will allow them, will create an avenue for them to remember that there is love in the universe. What we are speaking of is a sort of compassion. It is easier to have compassion for those that suffer. It is more difficult to have compassion for those who create the suffering. But understand that those who are creating the suffering are also suffering. They are suffering perhaps just as badly. We would remind you again that all of you have had lifetimes where you have made mistakes, where you have made the wrong choice. Even for a moment, you in this lifetime may have chosen the wrong direction and then self-corrected. It might be that sitting here now, you have remorse for some of the actions that you have engaged in, let's just say. You have remorse. This is useful. It is important. It is important for you to understand it. But keep in mind that because of other experiences that were more positive. It was easier for you to get to a place of remorse than someone who has rarely experienced love. Again, we don't wish to put upon you that the actions of others should all be accepted by you. Let us use a metaphor. When the Dalai Lama was asked if you were on an airplane and a terrorist there pulled a gun and was going to kill another, and the Dalai Lama could stop him, but in order to stop him, he had to kill the man with the gun. Would the Dalai Lama have stopped him? The Dalai Lama answered, "Of course I would stop him. Of course I would kill him to save the others. But I would not do it with any kind of judgment. I would kill the man with all of the love in my heart. I would know that I had to come and meet, let us call it danger, face to face. Sitting in my chair would have been the wrong thing to do. I have to choose to do the right thing. And when I choose to do the right thing, there are people who will be harmed. It is difficult because you must balance the greater good. All your empathy will not change the mind of the president who is doing a cruel thing. We don't necessarily speak of one president. You cannot change the way they are, and it is difficult for you to watch the person creating so much harm and pain and trauma and to not be able to do anything about it at present. We would suggest that you are more able than you think to change the world. That, as you are watching this, you are experiencing empathy, which is an important emotion for you. You are collectively deciding to do something. And as you are collectively deciding to do something, you are acting in a beautiful way. You are coming together much in the way that we come together. You are choosing love over hatred. Were you to put that president in prison, it would be useful to say he is just a human who has experienced bad things and is doing something wrong. We have no choice but to imprison such a person. But we don't judge him per se. We judge his actions because they are wrong. But that human that has gotten to that particular place has, because that is an experience that is part of the universe, which you must understand. We understand that this is a very complicated answer to a question because it is very difficult to truly understand the contradiction. However, there are moments where you do. There are moments where you have sympathy even for the greatest evil. You can sometimes see that the evil comes from a place of unhappiness and misunderstanding, or lack of ability to step out of the mindset that is evil.
I'd like to check in on Dave's physical body. What is your level of fatigue?
Oh, he is not fatigued at all. He has had a very healthy week, and we wish to let him know this. His healthy week has delivered a very immediate ability to translate.
Excellent, thank you.
You are welcome. We would recommend continuing for half an hour, 45 minutes at the maximum, but you don't need to go so far, just as you wish.
Thank you.
Well, so as you were saying, as far as holding people accountable in this lifetime for things that they did wrong, but not judging them,
Yes.
I appreciate that answer. But my question to you would be this: if you're trying to hold someone accountable for someone who did a wrongdoing, specifically to you, then how would you do that if they didn't think that they were wrong? So for
Well,
example, for example, so say you have that parent, right, who maybe parents their child not really in a very appropriate manner, but they think they're doing it correctly. So to hold them accountable for something that they don't think they did something wrong for, then requires a little bit more than just empathy or no judgment. Does that make sense?
Yes, and you might take certain actions against such a parent. Let's say a parent was abusing a child and you found out about it. What would you do? You would do your best to go to the police department, for example, and you would say to them, this is happening, it's wrong, and I will stand by this child, I will testify, I will do whatever it takes. You might not have any success with that police department. They might say the bruises are not evident, the child does not state that they are being beaten, so there is nothing that they can do. And you have to watch this happen. And it is a terrible thing for you because you do have empathy and you feel a limitation in your ability to help. You might do your best to talk to that parent. However, that parent will decide what they will decide. There's nothing that you can do to make them choose. However, if you were to say to them something like, how were you treated as a child? What happened to you? And maybe nudge them a little bit to make them understand that they are repeating a pattern. They experienced abuse, and the only way they can handle this is to abuse another. They don't want to spend 20 years in psychotherapy. They don't want to join a group of people who experience anger in a particular way. They don't want to do that. They are afraid to do that, perhaps. The only thing that you might be able to do in that situation is to deliver some words that help them become a little bit more aware of what is happening, and perhaps give empathy to that child, and perhaps call the authorities, etc. This is all you can do. It is much like us. We have a limited power to arrange things. That's not really a good metaphor. We must not interfere. It is not our child. We cannot directly interfere. We can be available when that child is available to us. We can be available to others, but that is all you can do. And we wish to say we empathize with you. We see that you have a big heart. And one of the things that's going on is your big heart is at play. It is being, we don't want to use the word triggered because that seems negative. It is being, let's say, employed. And that is a human experience, the empathy that you see. It is, in a way, very beautiful that you have such an empathy. But it is also a difficulty that you personally are experiencing. It is a upsetness that you cannot stop what is happening to the child. This is to be commended, and you are to be commended for having these feelings. But you cannot control others. You can make suggestions. You can be available. It is also sometimes the case that you must not be present. It's interesting because Dave has such a brother. The children were badly treated. He was very, very upset about this. They were not beaten, but they were just not taken care of in a proper fashion. And he did everything he could to change that situation, and even was reduced to an almost physical battle with his brother because he would not take responsibility for this. However, he did his best, and at some point, he needed to let it go and understand that the children would evolve in the way that they need to evolve. They have had these experiences and they will have these experiences. Physically, he took himself out of the United States of America and moved to Australia because he could not witness it any longer. And it is okay in interpersonal relationships if sometimes you simply cannot witness the person any longer. You simply cannot watch this happening. It makes you too upset to be able to focus on your own life. It is also the case that you might understand the contradiction. You might view that child from a distance and say to yourself, well, what can I do? How can I be available? You might make some kind of secret words with the child, letting them know that when they are ready, they can come speak to you about this. You can call the authorities, perhaps. You might also approach that parent, although there is a risk that they will react. Should you approach that parent, however, you would need to do so without any judgment. You don't know what that parent has been through. Perhaps the abuse has been 100 times worse, and the abuse that they are emitting is just a portion of what they have been emitting. This does not justify. But if you are to approach that person and understand them, things that they have experienced might have been so psychologically overwhelming that they are in a living hell. And for you to walk up and judge them is just the same judgment that they experienced as a child, etc., and the cycle will just continue. If you were to approach that person with a degree of empathy, perhaps you could even help them see themselves in the child that they were harming. Then you would be able to help. But understand that this cannot be your job 24/7. If you were to rush around helping every soul that suffers, you would never be able to live your life or comfort your own children when they are unhappy. You would be spending your time helping others. This is difficult, but there is some degree of distance that must be taken, some acceptance that some people have unhappy childhoods. It may be useful for that child, difficult to accept, but it may be that that child is experiencing this so that they develop their intuition, or they learn how to defend themselves, or they learn to be strong and independent.
Wow. Thank you so much. That was very in-depth and very kind words as well. Thank you.
We thank you for the question and for the intent of the question, which is one of love.
Yes.
Can I ask, does evil exist anywhere in the universe or even on Earth as a discrete energy, or is it just a lack of love and we just label it that way?
It would be better to say it is a lack of love. You are closer on the mark to this. It is not an independent thing. It is a sort of part of us. Keep in mind, the evil does do some good. It brings you closer to love. You witness it and you say, this is terrible, and you go to the love. Or you witness it and you say, I will give you love. Here, take this. Here is a metaphor. Once a monk was told that there existed in this cave a great deal of evil, and that they should never go to this cave, for it was a dark place. The monk, however, decided that he should go to that place and he should cure this evil. He did not bring a sort of sword, he did not bring a book, he did not bring anything else but himself. When the monk went to that cave, he did not stand in judgment, but he asked the evil in the cave, what we are terming evil, what can I do for you? How can I help? How can I give you so much love that you will remember that love? And when he did, the evil left. There was nothing to battle. Rather, there was something to love. We would suggest to you that at the heart of every evil is a lost, unhappy soul who cannot remember love. Maybe that is a better way to experience this, to understand it. Evil is not evil so much as it is a misremembering, a forgetting about love, a focusing on one particular aspect because that aspect has such a strong emotional impact that the person can never, has difficulty, let us say, get beyond it.
Understood. Thank you.
You are welcome.
I just have one last question. I don't know how exactly it's going to come out, but so a soul that is evolving, at what point does your soul evolve so that you don't have to do any more lifetimes?
Well, do not consider the lifetime a sort of karmic punishment. The lifetime is also an opportunity. It is a sort of marvelous grocery store where you can shop down the aisles and choose the things that you want. Trust us, there are people on this side who are envious, who are jealous, who would like to learn how to sew as you do, who watch you and think, what a skill. If only I could develop that skill, I would really have something to talk about when I get back to the source. Wow, isn't that fun and interesting? They look at many aspects of your life and have what you might call envy. They would like to experience them. So it is not a sort of punishment as sometimes has been understood on earth. It is more an opportunity to experience things. You are choosing to be on earth. You are wanting, in a sense, to have children, to see a sunset, to cry a few tears, to love someone and to lose someone. You desire this. It is difficult because you do see evil and you are full of empathy. That is why sometimes you think, this mortal coil, I don't care for it. I wish to return home. I don't want to do this, because you are experiencing that empathy or pain or sadness. But when you are doing that, you are also forgetting the other positives. Think of the marvelous work you are doing right now and how much energy and excitement and happiness it brings to you. You also chose to come to the earth to experiencing this. And it is a wonderful feeling, is it not? That you could come together and speak to the universe like this. It is so exciting and fun.
I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I really wouldn't.
Yes.
And I have no discord with having many lives and experiencing all of the wonderful, beautiful things here to do. But I was just wondering, at what point are you done?
Good question.
You know
yes,
what I mean?
we understand. Yes.
When are you finished?
It's hard to say because the notion of time is somewhat specific to your experience, but we would say that there will come a time where the Earth no longer exists, where there will be other planets that replace them. Don't worry, it is some time from now. You will not experience this ending in your lifetime. But let's just imagine your sun explodes and the Earth is thrown millions of miles away and becomes an uninhabitable rock. And that is just what happens. There will be other planets where people come as other beings and they will experience the universe in a different way. And it will sort of continue. We don't really have a way to express an ending, just as we don't have a way to express a beginning, because it is all happening always at the same time in every single direction that you could possibly imagine. We might think of this in a way like a diamond. There are so many facets of experience, and you're choosing to have more and more facets of experience, different kinds of lifetimes, different kinds of experiences, perhaps as what you might call an angel, different experiences as what you might call a alien being. That is a continuous process that we are in the middle right now. It is almost like that knowledge isn't entirely available to us in a way that we could express. It is not that we are ignorant of the beginning and end. It is that we don't really have the same time as you. The beginning and end are taking place at the same time. So is there a beginning and end? No, there is an understanding of a beginning and an understanding of an end. But it is always continuing, and it will always continue, and it has always been.
So how many lives do you have to live to reach the pinnacle of being a guide?
We would say you choose these lives. They aren't have tos, but you would choose them. Keep in mind also, there are human lives. So in your terms, you personally have lived approximately 636 lives. That is your experience on Earth. It might be that in the next lifetime, you complete all your contracts, you are finished and ready to move on. We would say that would be somewhat extraordinary. Probably Much like a speed reading course, you might miss some of the important details. You would rather come to this earth some times, perhaps you would choose to come back to earth 100 more times before you've completed your understanding of the human cycle. This is the way that it is. It might be that some come to the earth 1,000 times or 10,000 times because that is how many times they choose to understand the humanness, and then they are complete. They feel that they are done, and then they will become a character on some other planet. That is the way it is. It's not a set rule. It is not like we all have 12 grades and then we graduate from high school. It's not quite like that. It is a bit more your choice to experience these things, or your choice to go to a more pleasant planet where you just swim in the water as a fish and enjoy the sunshine and the other friendly fish, and that is the lifetime that you choose. Dave has had an experience of regressing someone in the work that he's done who spent a few hundred lives as a flower. She enjoyed these lifetimes so much that she kept reincarnating as a flower one after the other. And at a certain point, she was told, "You are getting bored of this. You are not moving forward. It is really not so interesting for you or useful for you to stay as a flower. You must come to the earth." And when she came to the earth, she had a lifetime that was both pleasant and unpleasant. It had many good connections to spirit. But at some point, these connections were somewhat broken, and some happiness deteriorated in this particular life. She chose this, and she chose to come back later with someone who is very connected to spirit. We speak of the woman Kim of Intuitive View. That was her choice, her wanting, her becoming. We don't force anyone to do anything. It is sort of a persuasion or conversation. But when you are out in space, if you will, you see things differently. You are not so worried about money, for example. You are experiencing a place without want or hunger or fear, etc. So you make choices that are broader. You make choices that are more in line with what is useful for you. Does this make sense? Please feel free to ask follow-up questions.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, you are welcome.
You said something there that begs a question in me about. You said somebody could incarnate as a plant and then become human. Is this something like, do our animals do they incarnate in human form, and do we
Yes.
incarnate in animal form?
Yes, you do.
Ah,
Yes, you might come to this earth as a tree, as a beautiful tree, and you will be on your savanna, and you will just experience the metamorphosis of your leaves. You will experience different seasons and climates. Perhaps you will even experience a tiger scratching its claws on your bark, and this will be an experience. It won't have the same aspects of humanity. It will be perhaps very subtle in your terms. If you were to come to the earth as a loyal dog, you would experiencing this particular aspect of humanity. Your range of emotions would not be so broad. You would experience a punishment, or you might experience loyalty and feelings of loyalty. Perhaps you would experience the joy of eating in a greater sense than you experience the joy of reading, for example. But you would have certain experiences. You would have different experiences if you came to the earth as a mineral or as a place. Some people come to the earth, and we say some people, but we mean some energies come to the earth, and they are the savanna, or the region around Lake Como, or the water in the river that is clean and then polluted.
There's food for thought there. I had never considered that. Well, I considered that we could incarnate as plants and animals, but I never considered geography as a
Yes.
as an entity.
Everything has an energy. Everything is incarnate. Everything around you, everything is incarnate in some way. We say this, but we don't want you to not have a fire in your fireplace tonight because the wood is experiencing pain. We want you to know that it's perhaps the wood's choice to become a piece of firewood now, and it will experience the fire and it won't hurt. It'll just experience the burning. Does this make
Thank you.
sense? You're welcome.
Absolute sense. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
so I mean, yeah. I mean, I already had the understanding that everything has a consciousness. So therefore, yeah, it makes sense.
We would ask you, Carl, are there certain places where you feel more at home? Certain cities, certain regions, even a pub? Is there a place where you feel more at home?
Yes, there are places. Well, I'm lucky that I live where I feel at home.
Yes, you are very
Yeah,
lucky, but
yeah,
you chose to come to that place because you have had
yes,
experiences in that place, experiences which you wish to continue experiencing, both good and bad. Let us
yeah,
say, for example, you were to walk into a particular pub and you find this pub very delightful. You just really enjoy this place. It might be that you worked there as the barmaid and you had a great time working there. That was part of your social life. You became very attached to the experience of pouring the drinks for other and managing others and befriending others and working together. You really enjoyed that aspect of a lifetime, and you wish to come back to that place to be present with the memory of that. It might also be that you were the wood in the table at that pub. It might also be that you were the wood in the fire at that pub, and you wish to re-experience it. It is a sort of nexus of experience for you, which you are attached. When all of you go to a place and you say to yourself, ah, this is beautiful. I like this place. I feel very happy. I feel connected. I feel as if I am speaking to what you call God. That is because you have had some experience there in the past. You have enjoyed that place, perhaps just as a ripple on the water of the ocean you are looking at. You have in some way experienced that and had a positive vibe. It may also be that you arrived at a place and it's totally new, and that is also an enjoyment. This might be the first of many experiences, and you are anticipating all the experiences that you will have in that particular place as a ripple of water or a grain of sand or a human or a body of people. You may also be, let us say, seeing the future of an experience that you will have there. This is a very complex thing, but we would ask you to notice the next time all of you walk into a place, you go into a place and you enjoy it, that you notice, what is it that I enjoy about the place? See if you have any memories. See while you're in that place if people say things to you that are us speaking to you and letting you know, yes, yes, you were here before. Yes, you were a barmaid before. Yes, you were happy here before. Wink, wink. We will sometimes send that to you because you are open to hearing those words and because it is enjoyable. It is enjoyable to sit in that pub and remember that you had been there before.
thank you.
You are welcome.
So we're coming up on 7 o'clock. So I think we need to shut her down, or it's going to be too much of a video to upload.
We understand. So it was marvelous to speak to you again.
Thank you very much for joining us at this time.
We will end the transmission.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful job, Dave. Breathe.
Healthy living.